yeah, that's okay. Stuff's going around, huh? We're going to be working on after we've gotten the drawing done. I also applied a little bit of masking fluid. This is a resist, it's liquid masking fluid. I applied that to some of the detailed areas on this, up in this area, especially in this detailed area and in a couple of the highlights. So the next thing I did was I have taken just clear water. So when you're using watercolor, water is the vehicle with which you're going to move the pigment to the paper. So I just put a wash of clean water around these objects, but I'm careful not to go too close to these objects. So I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch of dry paper around that because I want to have a clean edge when I go in there, and I don't want anything to bleed into the actual vegetables that we're going to be painting. So that's what I did. So this first step, apply water. Next area, we're going to mix the paint, and I'm taking water, and I'm using about a 1-inch flat brush, and I'm mixing up the paint. And you'll notice that's a pretty good amount of paint. This is a kind of an ultramarine blue, which is kind of a medium to dark blue. And if I put that on this page as the background, you'd run away. You'd be afraid to even look at it. So you can't use stuff right out of the tube.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's one of the things. And also, when I'm mixing this, I'm making sure to get that pigment mixed up. And if I look at this and this area, the surface area that I've got a little more paint than I need. And that's what you want to do. The worst thing you can do is to not mix enough paint. So then I've got brown. I'm not going to use all this brown, but I am going to take a little of the brown. I'm going to mix it in there. And I'm going to get actually a beautiful color. It's a beautiful gray. So blues and browns, I don't recommend you go to parties dressed in blue and brown. But blue and brown mixed together, they make a beautiful color. Look at that color.
Oh my.
So we're going to go. So if you look at your reference photo, it's going to be dark, and it's gradually going to get lighter down. Now, I paint every day, so when I apply the paint, I'm applying it with confidence, but take your time. This is a hard edge I'm creating here, and the beauty of this, and any of you who have painted buildings or been a house painter or anything know that you want to pull the paint from the side to bring it in. So I'm going to go around here. I'm going to use that line like that, and I'm going to try to create a little mark. I'm going to probably have to do that. I may want to make that a little darker up there, but I can always go over that. On the bottom looks a little darker, so I'm going to add a little bit more brown to that blue to just change the value a little bit. Now this is where that masking fluid kind of comes in handy, because I can go right over that area. And I'm going to come in like that, and I'm going to lose that edge, but the mark that the initial background made is still there. And so I'm going to kind of do the same thing over here. I'm going to come down like this to just create an image of the surface that these vegetables are on. And notice this is a pretty big brush because I'm working in a fairly large area. And I'm going to come in like this. Now, this is what's so cool about that masking fluid. I can come right in here and I can just wrap that whole edge around, and then I'm just going to join it up here at the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Okay, now when I paint this, it looks easier than when you paint it. So just remember that. It's because how many of these things have I done? I'm old and I've done this stuff. So, so that's what I would suggest. If you want to make a little bit of more, like as I look at this, I'm saying I may want to make this to be a little bit lighter. So I'm just adding a little watermark in there. And we'll see what the water does. I'm just going to leave that alone. So what I've done is I've added clear water over the highlight areas on the three objects. So there's a little highlight area here, there's a highlight area here, and there's a highlight area here. I've added just clear water just to make the, when I apply the next wash, it'll diffuse it and it'll make that edge softer. What I did was I used some ochre, and I picked up a little of the brown, but it has a little blue in it, and that's going to be this main onion color, and I'm going to be doing the big onion first. Remember that this object is a sphere, and the trick to this is I'm going to take a little dark. The edge of this and this cast shadow here is dark, so I'm going to start in the shadow, and I'm going to gradually paint it out to be lighter. So you'll see what I'm going to do. So I'm dropping this in. You got to be a little careful. I might be using a brush that's a little bit big, but it's going to work fine. So I'm coming in here. Again, that mask that I put in is really going to help me save some time here. I may want that area in there a little bit darker, so I just touched a little blue in it. And then I'm gonna kind of wrap that around, and I'm gonna go in like that. Now I'm just gonna take a little clear water, and I'm gonna go a little more on the ochre side, and I'm thinking that this is a spherical shape, and this thing also has lights on it. So if I want to drag that shadow, I'm going to go like that. And so it really does make a difference how you do this. And I'm going to leave this area in here a little light. And then while it's wet, it's really good. There's a core shadow. So the core shadow is the darkest shadow on the form. So that core shadow is the area of the object that's receiving the least amount of light. And so I want to kind of drop something like that in there. Coming around, there's a little area in here, and then like that. If you get a drip that looks like this, that looks kind of weird because it's not really going with the form. Try to get it to go with the form. So the main thing is remember that this is round. This is not flat. Yeah. So that's one thing to really keep in mind. And then this edge can be a little darker. So I'm kind of flooding that area with a value, but I'm being careful. If you have little funky areas, you can always clean them up. And again, I want to make this area down here a little darker because I want to push them those objects forward, right?
Yeah.
So this would be an area that could be pretty dark, and again, that's one of the reasons that in my initial plan I put that masking fluid on. Okay, so why don't you guys try that? I'm going to take a little clear water, and then this is kind of my highlight area in here. I'm also looking, looks like up here I might want to put a little bit of that. I may have a little touch here. So I'll show you how to mix here. So I'm going to be careful with this magenta. This is a very strong color. It's a dye. So I'm going to come in here with this, and then I'm going to take some of this brown and I'm going to put that in. And you'll notice it's a tint and it's pretty close. So there's going to be two types of color on this. One, I'm going to initially put in what's called the body color, so the overall color of the whole object. And that's kind of what this is. So it's weak, it's going to be a wash, it's going to be kind of thin. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little blue, maybe a little brown, maybe a little more magenta to certain areas to make it a little bit more realistic. I'm using a big brush. If you want to use a more medium brush, you can. So you'll see this is going to come in, and since I did this masking, I'm telling you, I saved you a lot of trouble. Coming in there, you don't have to fool around. So now I'm coming in there. Also, the direction that you move your brush can make a difference. Now, this area that I did up here is a problem. So I can do a couple of things. I'm going to take this brush. This is watercolor. So if I want to get rid of that blob, which I screwed up, see, it's gone. Because it's watercolor. This isn't acrylic, and this isn't oil. This is watercolor. So again, that's one of the beauties of watercolor. So if you have a crappy area, look at it. Look at this. It's sloppy, right? So I'm taking just a brush with water,
Smoothing it out.
and I'm cleaning it up a little bit so that my clients don't go, hey, what the heck? What is that? What are you doing? So now, next thing I have to do, I'm going to add a little bit more of the magenta, and I'm going to go with a little more brown. Again, I want to just mute this. I'm using the same color to come in. I want to get a little more on the blue scale, so I'm going to pull a little more blue in it. And now this is going to be a little bit more of the darker area, which is fairly well delineated. Here, I think I need a little more blue, a little better. If this purple gets too strong, take a little of that and you can mute it. So that's not a bad idea either. So that's better. And again, same idea. I want to drag it and I want to drag it. So that one side down in here is pretty dark. So I'm going to come in here pretty strong. And again, I don't care about this too much. I want a real dark in here, almost background dark, but a little bit more on the blue side of things. And I think that's about it for this brush. I can't really do much more with this brush. I did my lay-in with this brush. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to work to a detail a little bit more. I try to have students, especially students, I try to not get this rigger small brush in your hands too early, because you'll be sitting there like this all day. Because everybody loves the rigger. So now I have to put these stripes in there. So I'm just gonna line it up. I'm dragging the paint from the back across the front to get that tonal area. And then I'm looking at it, and so there are some stripes in here that kind of go like this. And with the beauty of watercolors, you can go right over it. And then if I need some real darks in here. And I may even indicate a little more of some of the cast shadow. So when I remove that masking, that's just gonna jump right out at everybody. So I'm going to come in like this. I may want to shoot it over here a little bit. I'm just going to I'm going to kind of make up this shadow a little bit, and I just want to kind of soften that edge. You'll notice why I did that. I'm letting this stain. So I'm letting it stain, but I still have a little bit more work to do. And I'm going to come back in with this kind of this purple, and I'm going to drop a little, so I put a little more blue in that magenta, and I'm going to come in like this, and I'm going to try to add, when this dries a little bit, I may do it a little more. And then this area in here is quite a bit darker in the back. And this is masked, so I can put a little of that in there. And you'll notice it's a little more more of a color that I'm putting into it now. But I'm being careful not to make it too garish. So I'm gonna try to. I'm letting the water make the marks, because that's one of the beauties of watercolor is if you trust the paint to. Well, I mean, you're kind of guiding the paint, but you kind of trust it to make it look cool. So this is the core shadow, which is the darkest shadow on the form, and I'm going to come down like that, and then I'm going to stop. Okay? So. So all we've got left is the garlic, and a lot of people, when they paint, if you're scared of painting, they just go, oh, well, I'll just leave it white, right? Because they don't want to do it, and you got to paint this. So what I'm saying is, I've seen it. You know, these people do these two, and then they go, well, it's white. I'm going to leave it alone. So I'm taking a very light wash of purple, and I'm going to take a little bit of that ochre and just graying it a little bit. Those are complementary colors, purple and yellow. And this is my dark side, and you'll notice I'm not putting any water or wash on this. I'm going to do in here, I'm going to do what's called a dry brush method. And that means I'm working the paint directly onto a dry surface. And the reason I'm doing that is because this garlic, it has a kind of a texture to it, and I'm going to almost draw with the brush what I see. Those kind of little lines that go on. So I'm just using this. This is a rigger brush, and I'm just drawing with a rigger brush is kind of like a pencil. So it's almost, you can draw. You know, it's almost like making a drawing. Now, you'll see that edge that I'm starting to create. I'm kind of running out of paint, but that's good when you're doing dry brush, because watch the effect I can get. I can get a real soft, draggy kind of effect. This is great for trees. It's great for a lot of things. So I've described that, but it's still flat. So now what I have to do is I have to make it a little bit darker. So I'm going to take a little more blue, and I'm going to put a little brown in that blue, because what I want to do is I want to give the illusion of space and depth. So I'm going to pull some of this out like this, and I'm going to wrap this core. So there's a core shadow on this too. And this comes all the way up, and it starts coming like this. And again, I'm not using too much water. I'm going to come in with a little water. And then a couple of other things I have to do is I have to drop a kind of a core shadow on the onion that's in here. And so I'm going to, it's kind of on the brown scale. So I'm coming in here, but I think I need a little more blue in there. That don't look too good. So I'm going to keep it on the blue side. So that's almost a black. That's like super dark. And then I'm going to come down in here, and I'm going to drop some more dark down in here. And I'm going to kind of wrap it around. Then I'm going to take a little of this, and I just want to bring that shadow up a little more. You'll notice that one area on the large onion was a little distracting. So I'm going to come in here like this, and then I might wrap a little of that around, and then if it depends on how much texture you want to put in it.
Right.
But I'm just taking a very, very thin wash, and I'm just kind of doing the same thing I did here. And this is dry brush. So dry brush is great for detail. There's not a lot of pigment on that brush as I'm moving it around. But what I did now with this is I unified it. I still have a bad area. If anybody can pot, that's a real bad area in there. So, but what I want to do is I kind of want to change that color a little bit. I want to warm that area up so it comes in. And then this is reflected light. If I want to pull in reflected light, I'm taking my brush, got a little water in it, and I'm kind of erasing a little of those values. And you can use that in a lot of areas on this, especially on the garlic, where there's very subtle value changes. Because those garlic, the heads of the garlic that are in there, they're kind of popping out a little bit. So if I want to indicate that, and you can follow the actual thing pretty good. I'm going to take a little more dark up in here, and I think I got it. So that'll be your next step. You've got the picture, it's in a good space. It's not completely finished, but this is a certain amount of time limitations. This is going to create our focal point. This is a rubber cement pickup, and what I always do is I cut the edges off of it when it gets dirty, because I don't want it to mess up what I'm doing. And so you can use this, but you can see what this does is I'm going to be picking up all of
That's crazy.
the areas, and I get my little spaghetti shapes in there.
Oh my God.
And so this is a tool. You can use your fingers too, but if you use your fingers, sometimes your fingers get dirty, and then you get the oil of your fingers on the actual surface, and that's not too good either.
Yeah.
So now you can see I'm pulling up some of the other highlights that I've created.
Wow.
And then all I would suggest to do is you'll finish it with pretty much a kind of a dark color. So you can kind of come in like this, and you can do a little bit of the overlapping shapes and spaces. You can follow it, but this is a lot of people really like this part of art, which is the real detail. And you take your time, and if you have a photograph, you have your photograph right next to you, and you would follow it, and then you can really make this area of the painting look absolutely beautiful by just having kind of overlapping, kind of give and take shapes. You can kind of see what I'm doing in there. How the roots of this vegetable are beautiful, and that's kind of some of the things that you can appreciate being an artist. And
You're just highlighting.
So
them.
yeah, I'm just trying to describe kind of the ins and outs and how the light is hitting the form. Then this is a little rough, so and if I want to add a little color kind of at the end, I can put a little more color in here on that highlight, and I'm going to kind of soften that highlight a little bit in there like that. And I can add, so now is a great time to add stronger color after you've gotten your entire painting together. So I can use that, and I can add a little more, and it's a good time. You can put the stripes in, kind of start going like that, and really make it look like an onion. You can do you can do the same up in here. If you want to add a little bit more to it, you can drop warmer values in. So maybe I might want to use a little of the ochre to kind of describe what's going on the form. Again, dry brush is always a nice technique to use. I may want to make it a little darker down in here next to the garlic. And you know, then you can come around, and if you want to make some squigglies in here. Squigglies is a very important art term that everybody uses. And so you can come like that. And again, what I'm saying is for you know, for an hour and a half, this is good. But you can take this to a whole other level, depending on the amount of time and the amount of effort that you want to put in it. But you know, for right now, something like this is working pretty good. So there you go.
Completely white hair.
Lovely.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.